What if the charts that you read are wrong? For example, ये MSCI इंडेक्स है, arguably दुनिया का सबसे trusted stock index. And अगर हम इसका disclaimer पढ़ते हैं, तो they very clearly mention that a lot of their data could be back tested. What is back tested data again? Basically, MSCI has no idea कि किस stock के साथ क्या हुआ था. So what they do is they see average में prices कैसे थे and they simply allocate prices to different dates. Meaning, अगर हम कोई भी technical analysis इस data पे करते हैं, तो we're not executing it right because the data in itself is not true. And this applies to every stock, every index, every country. Don't believe me, right? Let me prove it. Remember the post-election dip? Just the Nifty had dipped to about 21,400 intraday? Show me that on any chart of Nifty. From any source. Exactly. अब ये तो हमारी recent memory है. Imagine the kind of data manipulation that has been done over the last 2 decades. This is just an example of the kind of lies that you're believing every day. The charts cannot be trusted. Today we will talk about more such lies that you will find hard to believe, but I will show you either through evidence or through common sense that it is in fact a lie. For all that, let's see कि ये charts के गलत होने के issue को हम circumvent कैसे कर सकते हैं, right? Because we need to trade. So there are 2 possible ways to find a solution to this. First, you can source the data from a website like NSE directly. NSE will give you this data for free and I'll add the link to the description of the video. You can also use paid services जो इस data को collate करते रहते हैं. So in that case, you should have a fairly higher accuracy than using common public platforms. The second way to do that is to increase your time horizon. So instead of trading for a week, if we trade for 6 months, तो फिर इस तरीके का data manipulation should not hurt us. Because वो averaging out effect जो होता है ना, that takes care of any of the errors that could have come in over a longer period of time. Arguably, longer term trading is also safer, so yeah, might be a good idea. And now you might be wondering, why isn't SEBI doing anything about it? उनका तो काम है ना to make sure that all the data reported is in fact correct. Nope. That is not SEBI's job, and that brings me to the second point. The regulators are not here to save any of us. The regulators in any stock market are like the managers on the floor of a poker room. उनका काम है to make sure that the cards are being dealt. Their job is not to make sure that everyone is happy and that the game is fair. They'll only intervene जब गेम इतना ज़्यादा rigged हो जाए that एक obvious revolt शुरू हो जाए उसके against. Till that happens, the casino will keep raking in money. If you haven't played poker, that basically means कोई भी जीते, कोई भी हारे, casino को तो पैसे मिलेंगे ही ना. Similarly, STT तो हम pay करेंगे ही ना. The government is getting its money. We're going to pay brokerage, a part of which will go into regulatory bodies' pockets. So no matter what happens, as long as trading चल रही है, these bodies wouldn't really intervene. Arguably, they would actually want to support the biggest players because, again, think about it. If you're on a poker room floor, who do you think the casino is going to support? A small poker player who's got about $1,000 in chips? Or someone who's sitting with $1 crore in chips? उनके लिए ज़्यादा beneficial क्या है? Common sense, right? Let me be clear. I'm not saying that SEBI is trying to cheat us. In fact, I agree with what they do. That is their job. It's just that we should not expect SEBI to support us in trading. We need to be brave enough to know that we are going against sharks. And if we want to win, we'll have to be much better than the players with larger sums of money in their pockets. That does not sound very fair to the small investor, does it? But it doesn't have to be fair. That is not why the stock market exists. And that brings me to the third lie. We are told that the stock market exists because we need money to be raised for companies or because we need to find fair value and all that. That is not true. The stock market exists for one reason only: capitalism. Its job is to make sure that the money keeps going from the undeserving, quote unquote, to the deserving. Now, when I say undeserving, I obviously do not mean that. What the stock market means by undeserving is someone who does not understand where they're putting in their money, but still puts in money anyway. Don't believe me, right? Let me prove it again. The first reason that most people give for the existence of the stock market is that we need to raise money for growth. Okay, but there are about a dozen PE firms who can raise more money than 2 lakh retail investors will be able to do together. Why do we need the stock market again? 100 साल पहले हाँ हो सकता था ऐसा, but आज के दिन तो ऐसी चीजों की कोई जरूरत है ही नहीं. The second reason people quote is price discovery. कि अगर हमारे पास एक ओपन मार्केट सिस्टम होता है तो वी कैन फाइंड आउट द राइट प्राइस ऑफ कंपनीज, बट जब आईपीओ आता है तब भी तो वही होता है. इमेजिन दैट यू बिल्ट अ कंपनी ओवर 15-20 इयर्स एंड उसके बाद आप उसको पब्लिक मार्केट में लेके आते हो, वेयर यू आर गोइंग टू गिव अवे a good chunk of your company, 10, 20, 25% of your company, are you going to sell it at a price less than fair value? And will anyone buy it at a price higher than fair value? That's not how the financial system works. So price discovery तो again IPO के पहले हो ही गई. In fact, IPOs are arguably always going to be overpriced because there will be a markup on top of what the promoters will need. So now that I can look past all the jibber jabber about the stock market, I can finally understand why this exists. It is to take the money from the masses and pool it to the few who are smart enough to understand the system. And the moment you understand this, you go 6 levels higher in the stock market. उसके बाद कंसिस्टेंटली पैसा बनाना स्टॉक मार्केट में मुश्किल नहीं होगा, बिकॉज आप नहीं सोच रहे हो इस कंपनी की वैल्यूएशन कितनी है, पीई कितना है और अर्निंग्स ग्रोथ कितनी आएगी. यू आर थिंकिंग इन टर्म्स ऑफ व्हाट रियलिटी इज. कोई स्टॉक बहुत ज्यादा फेवरेबल हो रखा है, एवरीवन इज बुलिश ऑन इट, you should sell because odds are there's distribution happening. At the same time, there's a stock nobody's talking about, but for historically एकदम lows पे चल रहा है अपने. Whereas the business is good, you should buy it because odds are there's accumulation. But again, I'm not a SEBI registered investor. I'm just someone who's been making a decent amount of returns from the stock market for the past few years. So do make sure that you do your own research before investing, but it doesn't hurt to get an opinion, does it? And being registered investors and traders reminds me that there are a lot of myths about how the stock market valuations really work. In fact, the biggest myth of them all is that valuations matter at all. Let me qualify that statement. कुछ periods में valuations matter, meaning अगर आप एक bull market में हो तो you want to be with stocks that give you good valuations. अगर आप एक bear market में हो तो you want to be with stocks that have poor valuations, meaning जो stock cheap है वो bear market में खरीदना है and जो stock महंगा है वो bull market में खरीदना है. How does that work again? Well, when you're in a bull market तो सिस्टम में liquidity बहुत ज्यादा होती है. उस वक्त what everyone is thinking is which company is going to grow the fastest. Let me invest into that. That includes all the hedge funds, the big investors, everyone else, right? Whereas when you're in a bear market, तो everyone is thinking how do I protect my capital? Let me buy into a company. अगर वो liquidate भी हो गई तो मेरे को decent return मिल जाएगा. So 5 multiple, 6 multiple companies or dividend giving companies, right? That is how valuations do matter. बट इफ यू थिंक कि आप किसी कंपनी का हिस्टोरिकल वैल्यूएशन लोगे 15 साल का एंड यू विल सी इससे मैं प्रिडिक्ट कर लेता हूं अगले 3 साल में क्या वैल्यूएशन होगा, दैट्स नॉट हाउ द स्टॉक मार्केट वर्क्स. एंड फाइनली, टू प्रोबेबली द बिगेस्ट मिथ ऑफ देम ऑल, buy and hold for the long term truly works. Let me qualify it again. It'll work for someone who can genuinely do this. But वो ऐसे लोग हैं जो स्टॉक मार्केट में एक्टिवली इन्वॉल्व नहीं होते हैं. अगर आप यहाँ मेरा वीडियो देख रहे हो तो odds are you're active in the stock market. You're trying to understand how it works. हमारे जैसे लोग buy and hold 10 साल के लिए बहुत rarely कर पाएंगे, बहुत कम कंपनीज के साथ कर पाएंगे. ये उनके लिए who are working a job, who are going to invest, who are going to complete their SIPs for 10, 20 years, leave it for another 10 and then withdraw it at retirement or at the child's wedding. That'll work. You'll get 12-14% per year. But stock market में ऐसे भी periods आते हैं जब you get no returns for 5-7 years. It's happened multiple times, right? It's happened 2000 to 2005, 2007 to 2016, and within individual stocks, so this can keep going on for decades. So अगर आप buy and hold कर रहे हो as an active trader or investor, that's simply not going to work. You will have to get used to the swings of the market and use those swings to make money. Now I understand that most of this would be very difficult to believe, but I also had to be fairly brave to say this out loud. I understand how this might sound to a skeptical person, but अब आप इन बातों को खुद critically सोचो. Look at everything around you, look at all the data around you and see what I'm saying actually holds true. Just ask yourself this question: what if this guy is right?